Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 29th special meeting of Council. I'd like to first recognize that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. Our clerk tonight will be Ms. Sheila Gurry. We have no councillors attending electronically tonight. Tonight's special meeting is being held in accordance with the Community Charter and Council Procedure Bylaw 2018 number 7272. If during the meeting any member of the gallery has a question regarding a matter that was considered by Council today, please sign up on the sheet located by the table, by the double doors to my left. Please note that the Council Procedure Bylaw has been updated, so questions will only be taken on staff reports, consent items, and other business items. I'm going to read out the notice that I have been forced to read for various reasons over the last few weeks. Before we start the meeting, I would like to take a few moments to remind those who are attending in person about the rules of decorum for all council and committee meetings. A meeting of council is intended to be a place where democracy can freely take place in a respectful and safe manner. The council chamber is a workplace, and there are considerations council and staff must make to ensure that a safe work environment exists in accordance with WorkSafe BC regulations. To support this, disrespectful conduct will not be tolerated, so we ask that there be no cheering, jeering, or other outbursts from the gallery at any time. This will ensure that anyone speaking, whether it be a delegation, member of council, or staff, is not interrupted and can make their point freely without distraction or fear of ridicule. In instances where a speaker is being inappropriate or has exceeded their time limit, their microphone will be cut off. Similarly, if there are outbursts by any person in the gallery, they will be asked to stop, and if they do not comply, they may be asked to leave as permitted under Section 133 of the Community Charter. If necessary, Council may call a recess in order to reset the environment of the Council chambers. It is our belief that if everyone is respectful of these basic considerations, this meeting and future meetings will be more effective in furthering the business of the City of Nanaimo. The first item on the agenda is the introduction of late items. We have none tonight, Ms. Gurry. A motion for adoption of the agenda, please. Moved Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Prino. All those in favour? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. On to the Mayor's report. I want to remind everyone that the City of Nanaimo is launching an initiative to update the Country Club Urban Centre with a new transit exchange and streetscape improvements. The Country Club Urban Centre Mobility Upgrades project will focus on three key areas: exploring potential locations for the new transit exchange, identifying desirable features for this exchange, and developing strategies to improve mobility for all users in the area. The plan aims to make it safer, more accessible, and interconnected for walking, biking, rolling, and taking transit. The vision for a well-connected Country Club Urban Centre was established by City Plan, Nanaimo Reimagined, the Regional District of Nanaimo's Transit Redevelopment Strategy, and community input received to date. The first round of engagement kicked off on July 24th with the goal of gathering community input on ideas to include a new transit exchange in this important community hub. You can get involved in the engagement process by providing feedback online between July 24th and August 30th, 2024. Paper feedback forms are available at City Hall or at the Vancouver Island Regional Library, Wellington Branch and Country Club Centre, or subscribing to project updates on getinvolvednanaimo.ca to stay informed about the project. The initial engagement marks the beginning of our planning process for the updated transit exchange. A second round of community input is planned for the fall, which will aim to finalize the design concepts and features for the transit exchange. Construction is expected to commence in 26-27. Happily, I can announce that the tap is on, the water is flowing. Nanaimo's new water main is now in service. The Midtown water supply project reached a milestone, providing resilient water supply for the century ahead. On Wednesday, July 24th, following a ceremonial valve turning, the supply project reached a major milestone, it now being in service and delivering water to 2/3 of the city, notably including the hospital. The Midtown Water Supply Project began in 2022 to replace the high-risk concrete water main that served Nanaimo for the past 43 years. Replacement of this critical infrastructure became a top priority following a significant water main rupture on April 3rd, 2020, where 22 million litres of water gushed out onto Bowen Road. The new pipe is flexible, earthquake-resistant, and made to last. It has a larger capacity than the old main and is ready to handle Nanaimo's anticipated growth. While the new primary water main will be in full use, the Midtown Water Supply Project continues, completing secondary supply main connections on Bowen Road. This includes using the old concrete water main as a pipe sleeve for a new water supply main and adding a new dedicated water main to the Nanaimo Regional General Hospital. The new water main will carry a daily average of 25 million liters of water through to Nanaimo's homes, businesses, recreational facilities, and the hospital. And I want to express sincere thanks on behalf of Council and the community generally to city staff who have worked on this and to the contractors involved. It's a pretty substantial project and represents the kind of security for the supply of water that the city needs and deserves. I would also remind everyone that National Lifeguard Appreciation Day is Wednesday, July 31st. On behalf of Council, I want to extend my gratitude for the hard work and enthusiasm our city lifeguards demonstrate each and every day. Their commitment to teaching young people how to swim, to making our community centers a welcoming place for all, and to ensuring we have safe pools and lakes does not go unnoticed. The skill and professionalism they possess are inspiring, and we are fortunate to have such a dedicated team serving our community. So a very sincere thank you to them, and keep up the excellent work. As many of you know watching it, the Paris 2024 Olympic Games officially kicked off Friday, and close to a dozen athletes from Vancouver Island are overseas to compete. According to Team Canada, of the 337 athletes that have been named to the Canadian Olympic team, 11 from rowers to surfers and swimmers hail from the island. A total of 45 athletes call BC home. 6 on the roster from the Greater Victoria area, while 1 is from Nanaimo, 1 from Lansing, the other from Campbell River, and another from Black Creek. For Nanaimo, Ethan Katzberg, whose hometown is Nanaimo. His sport is the men's hammer throw. He will compete in the qualifying round starting Friday, August the 2nd. He's only 22. He made history at the 2023 World Athletics Championships when he became the first Canadian to win a world title in a hammer throw. The second one from Lanceville is Olivia Lundman. Her sport is the women's 20-kilometer race walk. It competes on Thursday, August the 1st. She's only 21, qualified for the first Olympic marathon race walk mixed relay at the 2024 World Athletics Race Walking Team Championships. And our local citizen, Dr. Abe Avender, will serve as team chiropractor for the Canadian National Men's Volleyball Team. All very positive from Vancouver Island. The Parks and Recreation and Culture are extremely excited about the upcoming release of the Fall Activity Guide. This fall, for the first time, the Aquatics Division will launch their fall and winter swimming lessons and programs on a special registration day starting at 6 a.m. on Wednesday, August the 7th. You can register online, by phone, or in person at Bevan Park or Nanaimo Aquatic Center for swimming lessons, lifeguarding courses, aquafit programs, and more. By creating a separate registration day just for aquatic programs, the community can expect less congestion on the phone lines and online registration system and an enhanced customer service experience. While we still expect demand to be high for these programs, the aquatics team has been working hard to increase capacity and is proud to have added 119 additional sets of swimming lessons for children this fall and winter. Congratulations to your shop, Mr. Harding. This reflects a nearly 20% increase in the number of spots available for youth to learn the critical life skill of swimming. A variety of new programs are also featured this season, including aqua yoga and introduction to synchro. The activity guide registration date for all other parks, recreation, and culture programs will follow on Wednesday, August the 14th, starting at 6 a.m. online, by phone, or in person at all community recreation centers. The Fall 2024 Activity Guide theme recognizes Nanaimo's 150 years since incorporation. The guide is full of all the popular recreation programs from skating to fitness, arts and culture, preschool, and more. In addition, we will also be introducing several new programs such as how to ride the bus, weekend Zumba, DIY sushi, Spanish conversation, and more. The Kinder Prep program has been revamped to include several new options such as Kinder Prep Culinary and Kinder Prep Green Thumb. Staff are very excited and thrilled to launch the start of the new season and can't wait to share all the offerings with the community this fall. And finally, given that summertime and water safety becomes especially important, just be reminded that lifeguards are on duty at Westwood Lake First Beach daily from 11:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., including stat holidays, weather permitting. Water parks are open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. All parks and recreation facilities and playground programs are closed on Monday, August the 5th for the BC Day holiday, as well as City Hall, the Service and Resource Centre, and Public Works. Sorry for the long presentation tonight. We have nothing to rise and report on, Ms. Gurry. We have no presentations. We do have a delegation unrelated to agenda items. That's Cheryl Bancroft, Cable Bay. Ms. Bancroft, come on down to the mic, please. And if you can, for the record in a minute, just introduce yourself. You'll have 5 minutes, and when 4 minutes are up, I will tell you have a minute left and would ask you to wrap up in that minute, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Cheryl Bancroft. Am I a bit too close to the speaker, I think? I do have a handout prepared. Am I allowed to give that to you?
Yes, one of staff can do that. Thank you. I would suggest as a matter of good practice, though, and I'll start you again at 5. If we're looking at it, we won't be listening to you, so we'll look at it after, if that's all right.
That's just fine. Just to introduce myself, I'm an Area A of RDN resident for the last 25 years. I've been 8 years as a director on the Ecoforestry Institute. I am now a member of the Cable Bay, Save Cable Bay group. And I also lead a watershed group on monitoring Quesnel Lake in Area A. I'm here tonight to just talk to you about an update really on what's happening from our end at Cable Bay and to ask for things of you. In terms of the update for Cable Bay, I think as you're aware, our group, our community group, has been working since 2020 to protect the forest and the Garry Oak Meadows to the east of Cable Bay Trail. We have a subdivision application before the city for the lands on the east side, and to the west of the Cable Bay Trail is an application for rezoning the land as from rural resource to industrial use. What we would like is for the city and staff to look at a bigger view of what's happening in the area, that how this may affect not just Cable Bay Trail, but also the residents of Area A, and includes Cedar all the way down to Yellow Point, and the users of the trail, which are quite extensive, and tourists from all over the world. We've been posting videos of these tourists on our Facebook page. I don't know if you've had a chance to catch any of those. One of the things that I guess I want to point out too is that you may know that we have had a petition out to protect the land, and we have, I think last time I looked today, we had 22,752 signatures on that petition. You've probably been receiving emails from the community and tourists about protecting the lands to the east of Cable Bay Trail. So there's been a very extensive campaign. One of the major things that's happened recently that you should know about is that we've been out trying to find a funder to purchase the lands to the east of Cable Bay Trail, because the realtor representing the consortium that owns the land has told us that the land is for sale. We have found a very large, provincially funded conservation funder. I don't want to name them at this point, but they are interested in talking with us about saving these lands. What we have on this handout are some further information that you'll read, not about that particular funder, but about some of the complex issues that are facing the lands to each side of Cable Bay Trail. And this is not just an ordinary land purchase. There are many complex issues involved with the land, I'm sure as you will understand. So what I'd like to ask of you, that is in the notes, is that we ask you to direct staff to protect the lands to the east of Cable Bay Trail, to not allow the subdivision and to look at...
1 minute, Ms. Bancroft. 1 minute.
Yeah, and the main ask that we have is that you direct staff to work with our group and other stakeholders, which would include the funder and would include everyone that has a part in it, including Harmac, as well as environmental groups and Nanaimo Area Land Trust, who are all supporters of protecting the land to the east of Cable Bay Trail. That's the main ask that we have, because we're at a stage now where we've found a funder who's interested, but we need to plan the way forward, and we need your help to do that. Third ask we have is that you help us insist on a minimum 100-meter buffer to the
Could you
west.
wrap up, please?
Okay. So we want to protect that buffer on the west. And the last thing is that at Joan Point Park, there is no life safety ring. And we have hundreds of trail hikers walking along there on a cliff to the ocean. So like on Mudge Island, we'd like to have a life ring installed. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Councillor Manley has a question.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm curious, I know that a lot of people, when they're emailing us about this issue, they've CC'd their MLA, their MP, the Minister of Environment federally, and the Minister of Environment provincially. Have you asked for meetings with your local MLAs or your local MPs about this issue?
No, we haven't.
And the reason why I say that is because both levels of government have pledged to preserve and protect 30% of the biodiversity in this country by 2030. And we have, you're well aware that there's areas there that are where there's species at risk, where there's it's also an environment that's at risk, the coastal Douglas fir. And both those levels of government have funding available. And we're facing this right across this region. The Regional District of Nanaimo has less than 2% of its lands protected in park or conservation areas. And as you may be aware, we're a huge area for people moving here. We're going through massive growth right now. And so people in different parts of our regional district and in the city of Nanaimo itself are finding that areas that they've always accessed and come to love as natural areas are under threat of development. And the city has very limited budgets for purchasing property. So I'm happy to hear that you found somebody that it would be great if they could pay the whole bill, but I kind of doubt that that's what the kind of money that they have. I'm interested to learn more about it, and I know that that's a discussion that probably can't happen in public right now. But I would encourage you to reach out to your MP and your MLAs, in particular leading up to a provincial election, that we need, because of the ENN land grant, 8,000 square kilometers of the southeast of Vancouver Island was privatized.
It's questions for the delegation, Councillor Manley.
Were you aware of the ENN land grant?
Yes.
And the history of this problem that we face here.
Yeah.
Councillor Manley will give you a lecture afterwards if you want.
But not necessarily a lecture.
Lecture in a kind way, Councillor Manley.
Okay.
The funder that we're speaking with often collaborates with another funding organization as well if the ask for funds is too great. But the funder that we are talking to has provincial funding. And so they would be the lead on the purchase.
I think we'd all be happy to hear more at some point.
Thank you. In order, Councillors Himmins and Gesselbrook.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, less a question, just a comment. I'm the chair of the Parks and Trails Committee at the RDN, and I'd welcome further conversation after tonight's meeting to talk about this.
Great.
Thank you. Councillor Gesselbrock?
Thanks, Mayor, through you. Thanks for all the work on this and bringing it to council's attention. I'm just curious, the petition that's got 22,000 people that have signed in, that's quite a significant amount of folks that have signed that. Is that sort of online?
Yeah, it is an online petition.
Okay,
Change.org.
great. Okay, thanks. And yeah, we've got the 4 requests here, so thanks for making it very clear and providing sort of this supplemental information.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your attendance.
Okay, thank you very much.
The next is reports. The first, 9A, Public Works Yard Updates Boring Bylaw. Ms. Mercer, please. Good evening.
Good evening, Your Worship. So since 2020, staff have been working on a project to redevelop the Public Works Yard. And a master plan has been prepared for the property to address all the issues identified. So a report and a business case were presented to council in 2021, and updates have been provided in 2022 and 2023 as well. At the July 22nd, 2024 council meeting, council chose to proceed with the highest needs in single phase option for the Public Works Yard, and staff presented funding options with the estimated cost of $90 million. So this option included the fleet maintenance building and the administration building, as well as some stormwater management facilities. At that meeting, council directed staff to proceed with the Public Works Yard updates projects with funding coming from borrowing. So based on the current MFABC 20-year indicative lending rate that the city uses, 4.58%, and with that interest rate, the annual debt servicing cost would be approximately $7.3 million per year. Staff are here asking for first 3 readings be given to the Public Works Yard updates bylaw or borrowing bylaw, and this would allow staff to start the AAP process for electoral approval as required by legislation. So just as a note, the project was previously called the Nanaimo Operations Center, but to be more reflective of the updated project scope, it has been renamed the Public Works Yard Update Projects.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Not seeing any. Councillor Hemmons?
Thank you, Worship. I move that Public Works Yard Updates Borrowing Bylaw number 7386 to authorize the borrowing of up to $90 million for the construction of the Public Works Yard Updates pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Hemmons?
Thank you. I move that the bylaw pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Thank you. I move that the bylaw passes third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. The next is 9B, Alternative Approval Process - Public Works Yard Updates Boring Bylaw 2024, number 7386. Ms. Gurry, please.
Thank you, Worship, and good evening, Council. The report in front of you is to obtain Council approval to proceed with an alternative approval process as the method to obtain approval of the electors for the borrowing of up to $90 million for Public Works Yard updates. So Council approval is being sought to undertake the AAP as the process going forward. If assent is received by the electors, it would permit Council to adopt the Public Works Yard Updates Borrowing Bylaw 2024 number 7386 to authorize Council to borrow up to $90 million for Public Work Yards updates. Requirements under the legislation in order to proceed with an AAP requires fair determination of the number of electors, which is outlined in the report, approval of the electoral response form, which is attached to your report, 3 bylaw readings, which you have just done, and the electoral response form submission period. Council must determine a deadline. Staff are proposing the deadline be October 31st, 2024 at 4:30 p.m., which is 42 days, which is 12 additional days beyond what is legislatively required. Elector approval is deemed to have been obtained if less than 7,974 valid elector response forms in opposition to bylaw number 7386 are received prior to 4:30 p.m. on October 31st. Council would then be able to consider bylaw adoption. So that is the report in front of you. There is the two options to obtain electoral approval, and that is the alternative approval process or the referendum, otherwise known as assent voting, and both of those options are presented to you in the report.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Gurry? Councillor Manley?
Thank you. Quick question. I noted that there's going to be an additional 12 days beyond the legislative requirement, so 42 days. What would be the day that the AAP process starts?
September 18th.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing any further questions. Councillor Hemmons, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that Council direct the corporate officer to proceed with an alternative approval process for the borrowing of up to $90 million for Public Works yard updates. Determine the total...
I'm sorry, but the concept is that council hears Councillor Hemmons, but thank you for your assistance. Yes, yes.
Thank you. I'll carry on. Determine the total numbers of electors in the area to which the approval process applies, the whole of the city of Nanaimo, to be 79,736. Establish a deadline of 4:30 p.m. on Thursday, October 31st, 2024 for receiving elector responses for the alternative approval process in relation to the Public Works Yard Updates Borrowing Bylaw 2024 number 7386. And finally, approve the draft elector response form as attached to the staff report dated July 29th, 2024.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Thorpe. Any discussion? Not seeing any. Sorry, Councillor Thorpe, pardon me.
Thank you. In light of past discussions, I just want to make it clear that I personally feel this is a totally appropriate process for moving ahead with this project, and I absolutely support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I concur, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor and any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. The next is item C, Public Works Yard AAP Communication and Engagement Strategy. Back to you, Ms. Gurry, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose of this report is to provide Council with a proposed communication and engagement strategy for the Public Works Yard alternative approval process. So at your regular meeting of July 22nd, you endorsed a new alternative approval process policy and directed staff to prepare a borrowing bylaw for the Public Works Yard project. This bylaw was on tonight's agenda for Council's consideration and endorsement. Previously, 2 AAPs took place seeking electoral approval to borrow funds for Phase 1 of the Public Works Yard Nanaimo Operations Center project. However, they were not completed successfully. Staff presented options for Council to consider at the 2024 June 24th Governance and Priorities Committee meeting, and Council directed staff to proceed with the highest needs in single phase. So we also came back with the policy that was approved, and as outlined in the policy, a high-level communication and engagement strategy has been prepared for your consideration. So when developing the communication and engagement strategy, staff considered the expanded scope of the project from what had been proposed during the previous AAPs, the recent adoption of the AAP policy, which now allows for electronic submissions, feedback heard regarding the previous AAP processes, and the recommendations outlined in the report from Lisa Sworn presented at the 2024 June 12th GPC meeting. So highlights from the proposed communication and engagement strategy that's in front of you this evening has open houses and tours of the Public Works Yard, online advertising with ads on Nanaimo News Now and Facebook and Instagram, social media posts, videos, images, messaging on Facebook, X, Instagram, and LinkedIn, website content updated from the AAP and project pages, a suite layered podcast episode featuring information on the AAP and project, news releases notifying of key dates, engagement events, and where to get information, ads printed in the Nanaimo News Bulletin newspaper, information stations set up in city facilities, radio ads, and flyers sent to households with information regarding the AAP project. So staff are recommending an informational flyer drop to households within the city limits due to the expanded scope of the Public Works Yard project and from discussion we've heard at this council table and from the public, as well as what was recommended by Lisa Sworn. And it's to help communicate the recent policy change now allowing individuals to submit their completed and signed forms electronically, as well as giving information about the project. Staff did explore the option of sending the information via addressed mail. However, this is much more costly. It's approximately $34,000 versus $13,000 for a flyer drop, and recipients would be limited to homeowners only. So doing a mail drop for $34,000 would only, it would be limited to homeowners and not. The benefits of a flyer drop, along with its reduced cost, is that all addresses, including rentals and apartments or condos, would receive the information. The risk, however, is that some individuals residing outside the eligible elector boundaries would receive the information flyers, which could cause confusion as they would not be eligible to participate. In addition, there is a risk that some households may not receive the information flyers, particularly those who have indicated they do not want unaddressed mail. So if they have no soliciting, et cetera, they would not receive the flyer. So that is, however, what we are recommending, just because it's a bigger reach. And we would try to articulate in the information that you have to reside within the city limits and be an eligible elector for the city of Nanaimo. So once this strategy has been endorsed by council, staff will develop detailed communications plans for the AAP and Public Works Yard project. Staff will update the necessary information, design materials, plan for engagement events, and secure advertising space. So the high-level communications plan is attached. I would just note it's not inclusive of everything. Missing, for example, under digital is our e-news weekly. So every week we do e-news. Through the last AAPs, it was a weekly edition in our e-news that we had information on AAPs and the project itself. As well, the engagement, the open houses and tours at the Public Works Yard. It says evenings and weekends. We might have during operational hours and weekends, evenings, weekends, so it's not entirely inclusive of what you see here, but everything else in here, it will be not specifically limited to and could be more than what you see noted. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gurry. Questions, Ms. Gurry?
I'm just going to make the recommended motion.
We'll give it a question. Sorry, Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of questions. I know we're going to see a higher level plan, and thank you for this. Thank you for developing this. Do we know how much prior to the AAP opens we're going to send the flyer out? Is that it's going to happen, the flyer is going to be sent out before the process starts or during the process?
Yes, that's first on the list. We have already started meeting on communications for the project going forward since council has decided to proceed with the project, just not knowing the method. That'll be one of the first items we work on to get it out prior to the AAP commencing. And within the next couple of weeks, you'll see more and more information getting out on our, updated on our website and digitally, et cetera. So yeah, the team's working hard to get started ASAP.
And will it be a similar approach for the open houses? So there'll be some open houses before the AAP process starts and some that will happen once the AAP is open?
That's my understanding. The one open house event that we did at Bevan Park last September, which was had all the information boards and staff there, was very poorly attended. I think we had 2 people and one of them was a counselor attend the event. So whereas the open houses that followed the tours at Public Works were quite like a lot more successful. So that's what we're looking at with the open houses, is more at the end of the tours to provide those boards, the information boards, the Q&As, that sort of thing.
And so there'll be tours before the AAP process opens as well then?
Yes, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gusselbrook.
Thanks, Mayor, through you. I appreciate the report. One question I have is just on the budget for the Public Works Yard breakdown. I'm looking at the documents that are available online. What should the public expect in terms of being able to see sort of the estimated project budget breakdown, and what document would that be found in? There's been a few iterations of the project. There's the master plan that has the phases, but now we've switched to this new plan. Is there one that has a consolidated breakdown of sort of the estimates?
Your Worship, there will be. At this point, we're working to put this communications together, the stuff that will appear on the Get Involved site and the City of Nanaimo's website. So it will be available, as Ms. Gurry referenced, in the next few weeks.
Okay, great. So before the flyer goes out, that information will be completed, and there will be links on the flyer to that information.
Your Worship, that's the intent, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Manley again.
Yeah, just one quick question on following up on the budget information. Will the contingency amounts be part of that information about budget, so that it's very clear that the amount we're borrowing is the amount to build plus any contingency for cost overruns, which is, I think we discussed, was about 25%. Is that correct?
Worship, that's correct. That's a spoiler alert. It's about 25%. And I would note that that's sort of a range of what we expect. So we expect it'll be $90 million, but that will be inclusive of that contingency, as well as some escalation built in to the midpoint of construction. So that'll all be part of it, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hemmons.
I'll move the recommended motion.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. Any discussion?
If I may, I'll be
Please.
very briefly. I'll say this is the first application of our new approach to determining what communication and engagement will look like depending on the scale and the scope of the project. And I just want to commend staff on this report and the strategy that they're putting forward. I very much appreciate the mail out. I think that's going to address a lot of the concerns. So if a flyer is going to every single house, I think that's a great approach, along with everything else that we've identified. So thank you to staff. Happy to support this.
I would second that. If there's no discussion, all those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. The next is D, liquor license application number LA 156-2373 Rosstown Road. Mr. Holm, please. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Worship and Council. This item Council received for information on July 8th Council meeting related to a liquor license application from the Nanaimo Theatre Group Society. Notification has taken place with respect to the proposed liquor license application. Occupants and owners within 100 meters of the property have been notified, consistent with Council's liquor license application process policy. This relates to the Bailey Theatre property outlined in red on the screen. As I said, notification's taken place. The proposed liquor license would allow service from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. 7 days a week for patrons of the theatre. Happy to take questions. Otherwise, notification's taken place, and those interested are able to speak to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any questions, Mr. Holm. It's requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to liquor license application number LA 156-2373 Rosstown Road. Please come on down. If you could just introduce yourself for the record.
I'm just going to go off my speech here because otherwise we'll go on a tangent. Hello, my name is David Bourne, and I'm the Director at Large for the Nanaimo Theatre Group Society, who own and operate 2373 Rosstown Road, also known as the Bailey Studio, and I'm also the applicant for this application. The Nanaimo Theatre Group, reason I'm speaking to this, I read the letter that was sent out to the populace around us, and the verbiage made me question endorsement, so I wanted to clear up some questions. The Nanaimo Theatre Group Society is a 100% volunteer-run nonprofit who has been providing the Nanaimo area with live entertainment for over 63 years. We at the Nanaimo Theatre Group provide the community with upwards of 60 live theatre performances a year. During these performances, we like to provide our patrons with the opportunity to enjoy a refreshing alcoholic beverage at our concession, which also has soft drinks and snacks available for sale. Our current process for allowing alcohol service during our performances involves getting special event permits or SEPs from the province. The SEP program was never really a good fit for us at the NTG, as it is designed for one-off events such as weddings, festivals, or Christmas parties. With the current system, we are allowed a maximum of 24 day-use SEPs per year before our applications are flagged for mandatory review. This means that almost 2/3 of our events are not guaranteed to have alcohol sales, meaning we are unable to give a consistent experience to our patrons. The rules of the SCP also state that we are not allowed to keep any alcohol on site between SCPs, meaning that any unopened alcohol that can be returned must be returned or disposed of between events, and brand new stock must be purchased for the next event. This puts a tremendous burden on our volunteers who need to go to the liquor store to return items, then essentially buy them right back. Granting us a liquor primary license would allow us to keep a small stock on site, relieving the burden of constantly returning and buying. It would also allow us to provide a consistent ambiance for our patrons. I would also like to take a moment to discuss the items in the public notice and comment sheet that were circulated to the community. Firstly, it states that this is an application to amend an existing liquor license. To my knowledge, there is no active liquor license at 2373 Rosstown Road, and I just hope to clarify that this is an application to have, not amend. Secondly, the notice states that our primary focus is live entertainment and liquor service. I'd like to clarify that our primary focus is live entertainment. We are not a nightclub or a saloon or a cabaret, even though our stage has been all of those things. Alcohol sales are currently set for 1 hour prior to performance and during intermission, and there have been discussions for allowing alcohol service after the performance for up to 30 minutes, as well as allowing service at our monthly membership meetings, but this has not been confirmed. Third, I'd like to speak to the maximum occupancy of the building, which is 302 people. Our current policy is that only patrons with valid tickets for that day's performance would be allowed admittance to the Bailey Studio, and if they are of legal age, be allowed to purchase any alcoholic beverages. The maximum number of tickets we sell is 170 per show. If we add the cast, crew, front of house, concession volunteers, we would possibly reach a maximum number of people in the building of 230, max. Of these, perhaps 6 to 10% would purchase an alcoholic drink or two. So again, not having a nightclub here. Lastly, I'd like to speak to the hours of proposed operation. We have asked for the hours from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m., noon to midnight, 7 days a week, as this would encompass all of our shows with no worry of accidentally selling outside of the approved hours. Our shows generally run 4 evening performances and 1 matinee performance per week. Further, the majority of our shows are set Wednesday to Sunday schedule, except for our Christmas pantomime, which runs just before Christmas, and then from the 26th to the 31st, regardless of the day of the week. Thus, 7 days a week just covers us. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm happy to make myself available for any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation tonight. It's just for council's information. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I may, I'm not sure if I misheard, but I'm looking again at the report. Did I understand you correctly to say that you have to get a special events license for every single performance?
Welcome to my life, yes.
Right, thank you.
That's why they're called archaic, Councillor Thorpe. Mr. Holm, thank you very much. Appreciate this. The next is the E-Cannabis Retail Store referral number 090455-50 10th Street. Mr. Holm, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This item is the first to be considered under Council's Cannabis Retail Store License Application Process Policy that was adopted July 8th. Again, the policy required a notice to be posted. In this case, it was posted between July 11th and the 18th related to a change in the licensee or an application, I guess, from the Liquor Control and Cannabis Regulation Branch. It's a new application for a cannabis retail store license at a property in the Southgate Shopping Center, a retail unit within the Southgate Shopping Center. The site was rezoned in 2023 to allow site-specific cannabis retail store use. So it was thoroughly vetted through Council's cannabis retail store rezoning policy. This is purely, in this case, requirement on behalf of Liquor Control and Licensing Regulation Branch for a positive endorsement for the license application in this case. So the use was previously approved through rezoning. We've now notified for council to now endorse an applicant that's made an application for a cannabis retail store license. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holm. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a very quick question through you to Mr. Holm. So similar to the last case regarding the liquor license application where we had approved it before to go forward, and then tonight was where people could make statements. Will that happen with this application as well, should it go forward?
Actually, this one has moved directly to, based on the policy adopted by council on July 8th. It's moved, we've notified, and it's moved directly to this stage, which is approval of the request for approval of the license.
Okay, so it doesn't come back here again
It
another
won't come
time?
back, no.
Okay, I just wondered out of
It's
interest.
a great question, and we're actually looking at revisiting. You can see quite a bit of time and energy, more so by, you heard from the last speaker.
Yes.
Some of the
Excellent.
operators are spent on related to liquor license applications. We're looking at actually bringing forward a revision to the city's liquor license application policy coming up at some point in the near future to try and lessen the amount of time that we spend on those applications. So thanks for pointing
Good,
that out.
thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perino. Councillor Hemmons is going to make the recommended motion. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Perino, any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. Next is F, rezoning application number RA 498-5360 Bergen Opzoom Drive. Again, Mr. Holm, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is again an item that was received at Council July 8th. A bylaw received 3 readings to rezone the subject property from R1 to R8, so residential rezoning. There were conditions identified that have to be met prior to adoption of the bylaw. There was an error actually in the conditions that were presented with respect to the community amenity contribution, in-kind community amenity contribution upgrades to Bergen Opzoom Drive. There was some lack of clarity in the conditions that were in the report, and what we're recommending is that council rescind the resolution that was passed with respect to the conditions of approval for the rezoning, and pass for transparency and clarity and certainty, pass an updated resolution that clarifies the actual intended upgrades to Bergen Opzoom Drive, which would be correctly from the south side of Bergen Opzoom from the subject property to Metville Drive to be upgraded to a local, urban local road standard, and the north side of Bergen Opzoom from the subject property to Arnhem Terrace to be upgraded to a urban local road standard. The correct scope of the road upgrades proposed are identified in an attachment to the report for clarity. I'm happy to take any questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any questions from members of council, given the nature of the motion. Councillor Hemmons, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council rescind the conditions related to zoning amendment bylaw 2024, number 4500.227, as presented on July 8th, 2024, and direct staff to secure the conditions related to zoning amendment bylaw 2024, number 4500.227, as outlined in the conditions of rezoning section of the staff report dated July 29th, 2024, prior to final adoption.
Seconded, Councillor Eastmere. Any discussion? Not seeing any. Oh, Councillor Perino, sorry.
So this does not come back to the council table again regarding this? This will finalize the error that was made and go forward, is that correct? Thank you, just wanted to confirm, thank you.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. The next is G, end of trip facilities. Mr. Sims, please.
Thanks, Your Worship. We're really pleased to be in front of you this evening with a request for some funding to install some end-of-trip facilities, also known as bike parking. So this is a priority for council, as we know from city plan and from many of the emails and correspondence you've received. Mr. Rose has a brief discussion for your benefit and the community's benefit, along with the subsequent motion to amend the budget.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sims. Mr. Rose, welcome. Good evening.
Good evening.
Delighted to see you here to talk about this.
Likewise. This is quite a brief presentation, but just wanted to cover a few key points. And so, as Mr. Sims highlighted, end-of-trip facilities is definitely something that's front and center for our community. A lot of things we hear from folks that want to bike somewhere is, what am I going to do when I get there? There's a high degree of concern that their bike, particularly if it's a high-value e-bike, may not be there when they get back. And so we've been working with a consultant over the past year or so to identify a means of prioritizing locations across the city and giving us a bit of a guiding document and guiding process to invest in our higher needs areas. And so quite high level, this is a summary table of the elements that are considered as part of the decision-making process, taking into account land use and proximity to cycling routes, as well as any pre-existing conditions for abilities to store bikes. This is a little deeper into it. This is actually the flow chart that we have within the process. I'm not going to go through all of it or go torture you with that, but essentially it's a bunch of go-no situations and ultimately gets us to a point of determining whether we need short, medium, or long-term type of bike storage and really how many units we need. And here are some examples of those various types. So the Tier 1 is a very high-level, protected, quite often staffed facility. This example in the picture is actually the City of Victoria's City Hall facility. The second one is one of the ones we're recommending in our Year 1 application. So this is a fairly smart technology where folks can roll up and they don't even need a lock. The devices lock through interaction. These ones also have the capability of charging e-bikes, and so you don't need to worry about where the plug is or whether or not you remembered your charger. The tiers 3 and 4 are, the first two are really intended to be longer term storage. So if you're going to work or if you're going to school, something along those lines. 3 and 4 are more short term. You're going in for a coffee, you're grabbing some groceries. The 3 obviously provides some weather protection, whereas the 4 is very much a quick drop, go grab what you need, and then come back and take off. These are some other examples. Tier 1, so this is an interior one, likely something associated with an office or apartment complex. The Tier 2 and 3, again, examples. So the 3 in this and in the center, we actually have some similar ones out at the university. We also had some similar ones at the Aquatic Center for a while. There's a couple of different options with these particular units. Some of them you can bring your own lock. Some of them have a lock built into them that you can either sign out a key for, or they have a login mechanism through an app. And then obviously there's also some needs to have some hardware support for bikes. I don't know if anybody's seen, but we just finished installing one of these units at the corner of Mostar and Metro. And so I don't know how much use it's gotten just yet, but I'm quite sure that anybody who's got a flat will appreciate having a pump there. And so within the report, we've got essentially 2 financial asks. One is for an additional $17,000 to complete the process we're working on and integrate it into our GIS system, so it reduces basically staff time in vetting these things. And the second is for direction from council to allocate approximately $225,000 over the next 3 years for installing facilities as guided by the document. And so as you see here, Year 1 is a Tier 2 or two Tier 2 locations on Commercial Street. we're sort of in a bit of a discussion right now whether we do 1 10-unit or 2 5. So those are some details that we're going to work out through the completion of the commercial street designs. Year 2 is on Front Street, generally in the vicinity of the Port Theatre, and these are actually tier 3 because we find that, or we expect that there's probably some more turnover in this area, and so people come in, drop, but would benefit from some weather protection on the facility. And I should point out that while we've got some fairly explicit locations starred on these maps, they're not that explicit. We're going to have to go and prove them out in the field to ensure that they do in fact fit in the right place and they've got a level entry, etc. So I would sort of broaden those stars out to, in this area, this is what we're proposing to add. And then for the 3rd year, we are proposing to add some with the upcoming transit facility improvements on Terminal Ave. And so that'll cover off we expect that'll consume the 225 million, or 225,000 over 3 years. But these are estimates at this point, and there may be opportunities for some cost savings or cost sharing. And so if we are able to identify any potential partners on that or opportunities to expand onto other facilities, it's something we're open to either for cold calls or we're going to start reaching out to different groups to see if they're interested, such as VIU or some of the other malls in town. So that is, I guess I missed it on my slide, but here's the ask, and happy to answer any questions regarding this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rose. I really do appreciate this presentation. It's all well and good that people get on their bicycles for their good health and ride from their home out along the Parkway Trail or wherever they care to go and take it back. But the only way we're going to really reduce carbon footprint, because those trips are designed for athletic activity and good health, is if people can actually integrate bicycles into their daily use when they go for that short shopping trip or whatever they may do. And without these facilities, it's not going to happen. So well done. Thank you. We have questions from Councillors Gesselbrock and then Perino.
Thanks, Mayor. Through you, supportive of this. Thanks. I think I've been a loudly voiced request for quite a while from the community, so I'm glad that we're moving forward with it. My one question is just even with, is there any programs that we have for Tier 4 parking, like just like the simple bike lock? I can't tell how many times I've been downtown, like most recently, all the very few that are on Commercial Street are used up or in front of stores, and I've just seen a growing number of very creative ways of people locking their bikes. I got holding up the back tire and locking it in front of the handrails at the Port Theatre, all sorts of poles. And I think even that simple infrastructure, do we have any way of supporting businesses that would like to put, a Tier 1 bike rack out in front of their house, out in front of their store to be able to do that? Or Tier 4? Like just a simple...
Through your worship, at this time we don't have a formal program per se. I think that, as you highlighted, those are probably a lot of quick win, really simple solutions. And I think that it's ones that the cheapest mechanism is just to start including them as part of road rebuilds and upgrades and retrofits. I think that we do have some money that we've set aside annually for sustainable end-of-trip facilities, and we've sort of been batting around different ideas as to what that could be used for, so there is possibility that we could tap into that. Recently, we've been working with the Old City Quarter to add some similar Tier 4 type facilities, so I think that's definitely something we can push a little further on, and like I say, if we find some cost savings on the different years, we can definitely kind of maybe top up that type of program to fill in those smaller gaps.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's been definitely something that even store owners that I've come across have inquired about, if there is something for our arts and culture and rec grants. I've seen some pretty artistic bike racks that have been, created in other cities and that, and also potential option. But I think, some energy in there is worth pursuing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. A question through you. Our Tier 3 bike parking units, they will all have e-charging capability, is that correct?
Through Your Worship, the Tier 3s would not. It would be most likely the Tier 1 and Tier 2 that have that sort of capacity.
Oh, okay, okay. And with the e-charging capability, will we be charging the bike owner?
That's something that we'll have to talk about going forward. I think at this point, we'll have to get a better sense as to what sort of uptake there is and sort of the costs to do that. And so that's something we need to discuss through the subscription service with the different vendors.
Because the charging unit, the battery to be recharged, of course, costs money. However, the mechanism to charge costs money, right? You know what I'm saying? The e-charger, of course, costs us money to charge, but for the bike owner, we also need a mechanism to be able to take the funding.
Yes, to recover the costs for the actual electricity consumption, yeah. And so, as I say, there's different vendors have different subscription programs as to how they run them with respect to the lock and the e-facility, so.
Right, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Someone care to make the recommended motion? Moved Councillor Eastmere, seconded Councillor Hemmons. Discussion? Not seeing any. All those in, sorry, Councillor Thorpe?
Yeah, I feel I have to, Your Worship. Thank you, and I will support this because I do support it. But I hesitate slightly with the second part of the recommended motion, which involves 3 years of funding for a program which we, at this point, really don't know how much use it will get. And I would have personally preferred some type of pilot project or engagement activity to try and judge usage and the worthiness of spending, what is it, $75,000 a year for 3 years into the future. So, that's my hesitation. I remember when the front street bike lanes were put in, we were assured, I think it was you, Mr. Rose, who told me that if we build it, they will come. And maybe that's true, but I can't help but feel that Kevin Costner is still out there in the cornfield looking for Joe Jackson. So anyway, Your Worship, I will support this.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Rose, Mr. Sims. The next is H, Traffic and Highways Regulation Bylaw Amendment Bylaw 2024, number 5000.048. Mr. Sims again, please.
Your Worship, I'll just ask Mr. Rose to step in on this, as this is part of our micromobility pilot that we're participating with the project, or with the province.
Keep pedaling, Mr. Rose.
Well, now I'm going to start kicking, so. So yes, thank you. This is actually a response to a report that was brought forward to Council earlier this year regarding the provincial pilot project for micromobility, or the electric e-kick scooters. And so we have been part of the pilot project since its inception. And the province did opt to extend the pilot project, but then this spring triggered a requirement that participant municipalities must update their bylaws to allow for the e-kick scooters. And so Council supported future or remaining in the pilot project. And so this is us bringing forward the amendment to Bylaw 5000 to legitimize the electric kick scooters that we are seeing all over town right now. And so we have completely followed the province's guidance on this, and and we've just integrated that into Bylaw 5000 with respect to the PPE and the where these devices may or may not be used. And so in the most simple terms, if wherever a bike is permitted to operate, these would be allowed to operate within the city of Nanaimo.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Rose? Not seeing any. Councillor Hemmons, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that Traffic and Highways Regulation Bylaw Amendment bylaw, 2024 number 5000.048, micro-mobility, traffic and safety on highways, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you. I move that the bylaw pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
And finally, I move that the bylaw pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much, gentlemen. The next is bylaw notice enforcement bylaw amendment, micro-mobility devices. Ms. Gurry, please.
Thank you, Worship. This report complements the bylaw that you just gave 3 readings to. Because you gave 3 readings to that previous bylaw, we're now asking you to give 3 readings to the bylaw notice enforcement bylaw amendment, which will assign fines for violations associated with the new scooter provisions outlined in the traffic and highway bylaw. And these fines are in keeping with other fines associated with the traffic and highway bylaw. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Not seeing any questions. Councillor Hemmons, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that bylaw notice enforcement amendment bylaw 2024 number 7159.22, fines for micro-mobility devices, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you. I move that the bylaw pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
And I move that the bylaw pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. The next is J, options for additional accessible washrooms at Westwood Lake Park. Mr. Harding, good evening.
Thank you, Worship. As your last council meeting, you received a motion from the Advisory Committee on Accessibility and Inclusiveness to look at adding an additional accessible washroom at our Westwood project. This project's underway, we didn't want to wait for the summer break to get back to you because it's underway right now. So Mr. Lonsdale's here to come back with a report with 3 options for you. One of which we recommend you to go with option 3, but he's here to outline the different options for you with proceeding to this project forward. This is phase 2 of the Westwood Lake project.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harding. Mr. Lonsdale, good evening. Thank you.
Good evening, Your Worship, and thank you for the kind introduction, Mr. Harding. I'm here, as Mr. Harding said, to discuss the options for additional accessible washrooms at Westwood Lake Park. So this project has been going on for a number of years. It started off with public engagement in 2021, and we have completed 1 phase of work already within the park, which is the parking lot upgrades that were completed in 2023. The phase that we're working on right now for washrooms and recreational space upgrades, we are planning on entering construction in September of this year, which will be going through into next year. And this project's really well supported by the city's integrated action plan to create a connected, healthy, and empowered Nanaimo. So I'll start with just a very brief overview of the scope of the project. This phase includes an expanded beach area. So the old parking area between the new parking lot and First Beach is being removed, and the recreational space is being expanded, and the beach is being expanded into that space. There'll be additional pedestrian and active transportation connections brought into the space, expanded shade, which is something we've heard a lot from the community about. We will have places for the community to connect with nature and with each other, as well as new washrooms for the space. Now, when we're working on a project like this, there's a lot of different competing priorities, for lack of a better term. We need to balance the current needs for the park users, the future needs for the park users, the space that we actually have to construct the things that we want to build, the budget that is available for that construction, and of course we need to meet building code requirements and the accessibility design best practices that we have. Now, as we've been working through this, early on we determined a occupancy load of about 200 people based on historic usage of the space during events, as well as long weekends, a sunny Friday, when the community really wants to be out there. When we're building a dedicated washroom facility, it's a little different under building code. Building code isn't really looking at dedicated washroom facilities. They're looking at more traditional uses, so like a retail space or an office space or a home or that sort of thing. So BCBC, the BC Building Code, requires one single accessible washroom in a facility like this, and it doesn't really get too much more specific than that for us. We're using CSA 651, the Canadian Standards Association, to help us outfit these washrooms in an accessible manner. The 651 is speaking directly to accessibility concerns and accessibility codes. And that is also silent on the number of units in here. Whereas ADA, the Americans with Disability Act, is specifying is specifying specifically 1 in 20 units for this type of application be fully accessible. You can see on the right the general arrangement that we have within the plan right now, where we have universal washroom units and one single universal and accessible washroom unit, which would be 1 in 7, so almost 3 times greater than that ADA 1 in 20 for this application. So our current plan, as I said, we have 1 single universal and accessible washroom unit and 6 universal washroom units. Those universal washroom units are larger than the smallest stuff that's available under code. So folks who are using some mobility assistance devices are able to navigate them, but they wouldn't fully meet accessible code. There are also elements within those universal washroom units that are intended to help folks that have mobility challenges, but again, it doesn't strictly meet our BCBC accessible code. The universal accessible washroom unit does and goes over and above. It includes things like a universal change table so that folks of all ages who need to be toileted in this facility have the facilities available to be able to do so. So the second option that's been presented to you would be to take 2 of the universal universal washroom units and combine them into 1 single universal and accessible washroom unit. That would give us a total of 6 units, which would meet today's needs for the park, but based on our future use projections, would fall a little bit short of that occupancy loading that we'd be looking at in the future. This would, however, accomplish what the ACAI has recommended, which is an additional accessible washroom unit being included in the park. And then option 3 would be to take 1 of those universal washroom units and expand it to create a second universal and accessible washroom unit, while keeping 5 other universal units for the total of 7, which would then be responsive to the future needs for the park. I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have, of course, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Eastmere.
Thank you for this. Really appreciate seeing these options after the Accessibility Committee recommended adding an additional washroom. I do believe option 3 is really the only one that addresses the desire for an additional one without taking away from the total number of stalls. I just wondered, there were some concerns about the 1 universal and accessible washroom unit also being designated as a potential family change room. And seeing the conflict of use there. Was there any consideration with these options to add just a designated change room facility that isn't also a washroom?
Thank you for your question, and through your worship. The discussion around dedicated change facilities is a discussion that we'd had early on within the design of the project. And taking a look at the park's operations records, there really aren't too many calls for that facility to get opened. The existing washrooms there have 2 change facilities within them, and they're not really high use at this point. So the cost per square footage to build new change facilities didn't seem like the best use of funding, where we could dovetail it with other uses that we're already planning to include. So all of the universal washrooms include a bench in there so that you can use that as a change facility. They're of a size where I've got 2 younger kids. If I'm going there and I need to get them in their swimsuits, I could pop them up on the bench and get them changed and we're good to go. The universal accessible washroom has larger benches, which are helpful for folks that need it from that accessibility perspective, but it would also be able to be used as a family change room as well if the need arises.
Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I think you actually may have answered it. I just wondered if there was like a baby change table in the universal washrooms.
Through your worship, yes, there is.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Eastmere.
So I'd like to move option 3.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. Any discussion? Well, I must say, I am very tempted to vote against this because I much prefer the staff option of option 1. As much as I appreciate the principles around accessibility and universality, 1 in 7 of these washrooms is going to be fully accessible and universal. And you have to consider the makeup of the general population. I'm not sure, candidly, that it merits an extra $100,000 of public funds in circumstances like this. I'd be interested to hear from other members of council, and I appreciate it's a recommendation of the committee. But money is money, as they say back home, and $100,000 is a substantial amount of money to accommodate one further, converting one non-accessible washroom into one accessible washroom, and not increasing the potential usage, if you will, for the general public. So I'll be interested to hear from others, but Councillors Perino, Eastmere, and Brown in order, please. They're good. Councillor Eastmere.
I would just share from the Accessibility Committee's perspective, they felt that the current use of the park is not a true reflection of how many people would be using that park if it was at all accessible, if there were accessible washrooms. And if we're trying to build something that's future-proof, that we need to be able to provide an adequate number of washrooms, and especially with the fact that the one larger unit in option 1 is also kind of a family change room thing, that creates a situation where then if you have someone in a wheelchair who needs a fully accessible washroom stall, they don't have access to it. And I think we are seeing the huge growth in our community and how loved this park is, and as soon as it is actually accessible, and with phase 2 coming online, I think this makes a lot of sense, and I'd rather spend the money to do it right now than regret in the future that we didn't put in an adequate number of accessible washrooms.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. The next is K 2024-3034 Community Works Fund Agreement. Ms. Mercer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the city has received a 10-year renewal agreement for the Community Works Fund under the Canada Community Building Fund. So the agreement outlines eligible expenditures, and the annual reporting has been revised to include some geolocation, standardized metrics, and standardized outcomes for each project. So that's something new since the previous iteration of this program. As well, there's some additional reporting requirements for communities outside the Lower Mainland with a population over 30,000 that are required. So a bit more reporting under this agreement, slightly tweaked eligible expenses. The funding levels for the next 5 years are from 2024 to 2026. Each year we will receive just a bit over $4.6 million, and in 2027 and 2028 we receive just a bit under $4.8 million. And again, once we have set funding for 5 years, and then once those are done, we'll get the next 5 years. And the funding is required to be fully spent within 5 years of receiving it. So that's something we will focus on with the project plan this year. And so staff are looking for council's authorization to sign the 2024 to 2034 Community Works Fund Agreement.
Thank you very much. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question through you to Ms. Mercer. So, for example, we just looked at the washroom facility, of course, at the Westwood. Could money from this have been used for that?
Through Your Worship, it would have been eligible under this program. However, the way we looked at, Ms. Fuller looked at funding the program, it was felt better used for something else. So,
okay, but we never have a problem spending this money.
No,
is that right?
We could probably spend this money.
Very good to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'll move the motion, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Seconded, Councillor Brown. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next is bylaws. The first one, A, zoning amendment bylaw 2024, number 4500.229. Councillor Hemmons, please.
Thank you. I move that zoning amendment bylaw 2024, number 4500.229, update to interim corridor area, be adopted.
Seconded. Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Next is B, fees and charges amendment bylaw 2024, number 7336.10. Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you. I move that fees and charges amendment bylaw 2024, number 7336.10, a bylaw to amend the police services RCMP fees for criminal records checks and fingerprinting be adopted.
Seconded. Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. We have no notices of motion. We have no correspondence. Other business is Councillor Thorpe, motion re Systems Planning Organization and the Nanaimo Prosperity Corporation. Councillor Thorpe, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Through you, I indicated at last meeting this would be a notice of motion, so I'm bringing it forward as a motion today, and that reads that beginning in September 2024, the Systems Planning Organization and the Nanaimo Prosperity Corporation provide quarterly reports to City Council on their activities. If there's a seconder, I'll speak briefly to it.
Seconded. Councillor Perino, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is simply about council oversight and accountability. We have hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in these two arm's-length organizations, and I hope they are successful. I believe in them, and I think they will be doing good work as the coming months will prove, but I think that council deserves updates on just what exactly they are doing, and I believe this probably should have been incorporated into their original terms of reference. And maybe Mr. Lindsay can correct me, but I don't believe any such accountability was incorporated. Mr. Lindsay?
Your Worship, through Councillor Thorpe, I do not believe there's anything in the current agreement that requires that. We do have them come annually, typically in the fall when you're putting your budget together. We invite them as along with other external stakeholders to come and present to council, but that's the only opportunity at this time.
Great, thank you. That's what I thought. And for my thinking, I think council needs to be updated more regularly than that. So I think quarterly is quite fair. My intent would be a written report, possibly augmented by a verbal update. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you. Would we require the same of tourism? I'm thinking of, last term we kind of set the wheels in motion for these three different organizations, tourism, SPO, and the Prosperity Corporation, and if we're going to ask for regular updates from two of them, we should ask for all three. So curious if we can wrap tourism into this. I would propose that amendment.
Is there a seconder? Seconded. Councillor Manley. Wish to speak to it, Councillor Hemmons? No. Sorry, Councillor Gesselbrock.
I'm sorry.
Slightly faster.
Oh dear.
Councillor Gesselbrock.
Oh, the amendment's been passed, so
no.
I speak to the main motion.
Councillor Thorpe.
No, I'm happy to support the amendment. And the reason I did not include tourism was that the city has a slightly different level of financial commitment to tourism. And in terms of the CA or the executive director of those organizations, the city fully funds the two that I mentioned in my motion, not so with tourism. So I think there is a difference in the degree of accountability, but I'm always happy to hear updates from our arm's length organization, so I'm okay with supporting that.
Thank you. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just to say that I'll be voting both for the motion and the amendment is because these organizations have likely monthly or bi-monthly board meetings. So just to get their reports would be excellent for us.
Thank you very much. For what it's worth, I appreciate what Councillor Thorpe has had to say and Mr. Lindsay around the different funding for these three organizations, but frankly, it's not harmful, and I think from the public perspective, it would enhance the credibility of all three with the community. They are in receipt of taxpayers' dollars. I think it's quite useful. So I'm happy to support it. If I'm not seeing any other speakers on the amendment, all those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. And on the motion as amended, no further speakers. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Question period, Ms. Gurry? Seeing none, motion for adjournment. Moved Councillor Brown, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.